Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to make a few comments about believing in what it is that we're up to. And I think this is important because, well, if we don't, it's a bit of a struggle, isn't it, to get through what it is that when we get into the challenging times, that is. I'm going to use a significant personality as an example of this, but far be it for me to challenge a guy like that's accomplishments in life. But I want to preface this upon something I used to talk about a fair bit, which I've never seen to be able to fail, or I've never seen fail rather, so far in my life or in the lives of others, in examination of others. It's something, it's a concept, it's like a graphical representation of how it is that we get things done in life. And I call it the continuum of advancement, which is basically an XY chart, where you got axes, right? You got your horizontal axis is normally, I think, the x-axis, and the vertical is usually the y-axis, and the horizontal in this case is time. Like time, we live in the existence of time, right? The time marches on. It's like a psychopath. It doesn't care about us, about how well we did or whatever. It just goes on. Tomorrow is tomorrow, whether we like it or not, right? Time marches on. We die, we live, we die, and so on. And as we go along, though, we wish for a better quality of life, right? And that I represent as the up and down. So down would be a lower quality of life, up would be a higher quality of life, and we wish for a better quality of life. So everything that we set out to do, we kind of project into time, into the future. Let's say it's going to get a jar of peanut butter at the store. Well, if we're going to go get a jar of peanut butter, surely we have this idea. We haven't thought it through. It's sort of innate. We haven't thought it through, but we have this realization that, hey, if I got a jar of peanut butter in the fridge, I feel this much better somehow. Like I feel more complete, or I've got a new one because the old one's empty or whatever it is. And we go through a process of that. And part of that process includes believing that we actually could do it. Because if for some reason we're in the middle of nowhere and there's no grocery stores around and there's no availability for peanut butter, we're not going to go charging off for peanut butter because we have no concept of believing that it's possible for us to get a jar of peanut butter. So belief to our actions, to effective actions. Surely it has to be, right? And the example I'm going to use here is Donald Trump. I use Donald Trump once in a while because Donald Trump seems to be forefront in the news media, and he is an example of somebody who's gotten a few things done in his life. Love him or hate him, we have to admit that. Had his share of failures in the works, right? But here's a guy who jumped into politics for the first time in his life 4 years ago, whatever, and he won the presidency for the United States. That's pretty significant. At a lot of odds, too. Everybody went against him. The whole party, the whole Republican Party went against him, the whole media, including, for those of you who forget, Fox News. They were the first media outfit to go against him hard. Remember Megyn Kelly? She was the one who tore a strip off of him right on the first debates, or I think it was, or whatever. Anyway, he won. So he's an interesting guy. And he held all this series of rallies, rally after rally after rally after rally, and they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where he had like whole parking lots overflowing and like the freeways jammed up and everything else, with people wanting to get to his rallies. Well, after he got elected, the relentless attacks did not stop. In fact, they went deeper and deeper and deeper into the deep state, to the point where the whole apparatus was after him. And I have to say it, I hate to be right on these cases, but I kind of predicted this. They would stop at nothing, except probably killing him, because they knew he was probably smart enough to not be killed. But they tried a lot. It was one thing after another. You can see how he'd be accused of something, Russiagate or another conspiracy theory, and he'd be accused of there would be an impeachment fiasco, and this sexual allegation, and going after this guy who was working for him, whether it was Kavanaugh or whatever it was, that General Flynn, and what's his name, Roger Stone, and all these people. They've gone after him and after him and after him. And I recently watched his first speech after this whole coronavirus thing, and this was the first time really in a long, long time where he wasn't able to fill a stadium. And I honestly, I didn't know that when I was watching part of it. I only heard later that he didn't fill the stadium. But I noticed that he felt a little bit dejected. And he didn't look like the old Donald Trump. He looked burned out. He looked ground down. And he looked like, in some ways, he no longer believed in what he was doing, which I think is significant. Because I think he knows that even though he's talking about zero interest rates and low interest rates and printing more money and all this sort of stuff, and I care about this group and I care about that group, he's saying it at this point, right? Oh, yeah, we should arrest everybody who burns the national flag and all this sort of stuff. I think he's testing. He's been able to A/B test all of his life and get it right most of the time. And it looks like he is worn down and he's really not sure what works, because he's been under relentless attack. Relentless attack. Maybe that's why. I mean, it's amazing strength that he could stand up against those relentless attacks all those years. But the final reality is, it kind of reminds me of Winston Smith when he was finally just worn down by the system, by NSOC and his tortures and so on. He just finally said, yeah, 2 + 2 does equal 5. Like, not only do I say it, but I actually believe it. And if disbelief in our cause becomes our belief, I think we're kind of done. We have to change paths quickly if we want to save that. Or we have to move on. We have to know when to pivot, in a way. And I think that's what I saw. That's the sense I got when I saw Trump standing up there in what I found out to be later to be a half-full stadium or something. And of course, the whole parking lot was supposed to be full. Now, there may be good reasons why this was. I mean, people were scared of coronavirus. They were scared of thugs out in the parking lot who were willing to kill, people for showing up to the Trump rally. They were afraid of it was probably hard for them to come in from out of state and to fly in and whatever, because of all kinds of things that have gone on. I mean, our world has been turned upside down in so many ways. But all of that combined, I think, helped to turn Trump from a very, very high level of belief into what he was doing to a diminished level of belief. And I think it showed in his resolve, in his ability to project this, to project his belief into the minds and hearts of others. So what can we learn from this? Well, I think what we can learn from this is just the importance of the power of belief, and knowing where belief comes from, right? Knowing where it comes from. It's the things like, is it possible? Is it humanly possible, right, to do it? And do we have a strong enough desire, right? So when we have a strong enough desire and we know it's possible, and we connect that all together with that quality of life that comes from it. And sometimes the quality of life is not necessarily in terms of creature comfort. Sometimes it's just the ability to rest at night with a clear conscience because we've done the right thing. We've helped somebody else out of trouble, or whatever it is. Whatever that is. I mean, after all, we got to remember that even the pious monk does what he does for his quality of life. He might think it's in the afterlife and so on, but that's existing in his heart and his mind at the moment, right? But at the end of the day, people act upon incentives. And if we can incentivize ourselves strong enough to go for something that's a bigger cause than us, and we can stay with that, and we begin to fortify it with building up that desire by recognizing what it is that we want and how important it is, realizing that the steps that we're doing are possible, and then noticing the little incremental results that we get. And all of that begins to build on itself and helps us to maintain that belief that what we're doing is the right thing. And I think it's important, because when we start to lose that, we have to find ways to get it back, because if it continues to slip, we're done. We're done. It's already over, I would say. So let's work on belief. Let's have, some people call it faith, but at the end of the day, it's belief. But belief has to be based on something. It cannot just be wishful thinking or blind faith or something like that. It has to be based in something. We have to be able to see, okay, this is possible. This is possible. I have the means to do it, or the way to collect the means. and I'm going to keep on going forward, and begin to see results. So, yeah. If you have any comments, please like, subscribe, and share, and also comment. So, great chatting again. I'll talk and say bye for now.